City Council finalizes its 2014 budget. A warrant is issued for the owner of a dog involved in a mauling case. And 6 dogs at the shelter have died from the parvo virus.
Another municipal budget season has come to an end, but not all of Thunder Bay's councillors support the city's spending plan.
Nearly a third of council voted against the document, some citing the 16 new jobs included. Money Matters kept local politicians busy all night. They pulled the plug on a child care program and wrestled with how to pay for $1 million budget overrun for the Golf Links Road 4-laning project. Dennis Ward has more.
The first phase of improvements to Golf Links Road hasn't even wrapped up yet, but the costs are going up. Nearly $1 million in overruns will bring the total budget to about $8 million.
I understand that we've got to do what we've got to do, and I understand that there's more material. But I do have to say, Mr. Chairman, that I am disappointed that we seem to be so far under the estimate.
The extra costs were going to be paid for in part by deferring 2 roads projects slated for this year, but Council decided to take more than $500,000 from the Renew Thunder Bay Fund to cover part of the overrun. At one time, the reserve fund the city plans to use for the proposed event centre had nearly $30 million in it. Now there's about $20 million in the account. Council also had a lengthy debate about a late-night childcare program. Keeping the Grace Remus Evening Care Project going meant adding $50,000 to the budget.
I know it sounds cliche, but when you want to spend money to protect people, it's the young people. Okay, and $50,000 or $100,000 a year is not a lot for childcare in a city this size.
We're in competition with the private sector. Here we go again. We just closed a golf course for exactly this reason. We're in competition with the private sector. That's not our business.
A slim majority voted to phase out the program. It will wrap up at the end of June. Council also gave final approval to the 2014 budget, but not everyone was happy with the spending plan, which calls for a 3% tax levy increase or 1.69% for the average existing taxpayer. Councillors Boschkoff, Ridholm, Johnson and Gertuga voted against. Councillor Roberto feels the tax levy increase is low and believes the votes against are politically motivated.
Very disappointing. And I know it's an election year, so they want to get voted in again. They think this is going to help them. I think that if most people sat back and said, hey, if I don't invest in my house, it's going to fall apart, most people see the logic behind budgets.
Dennis Ward, TBT News.
While the 2014 budget is now ratified, some further tinkering may be needed. The city is staring down some major tax revenue losses depending on decisions made by the province. Regional politicians have been engaged in a bitter battle with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, specifically regarding the values placed on pulp and paper mills. The impact of assessment changes on mills has been devastating for some communities and caused major budget challenges. The city is fighting a change in the assessed value of the Resolute Forest products. If that goes ahead, the value of the mill will have dropped from $72 million to $35 million in 5 years. Thunder Bay also stands to lose more than $500,000 in tax revenue each year if local grain elevators are reclassified. It's a change the city strongly objects.
What we're saying to the province is, first of all, there was no prior consultation with the City of Thunder Bay with respect to that recommended change. It's a recommended change, and it'll result in a $600,000 loss in annual tax revenue for the City of Thunder Bay.
The city pays MPAC $1.2 million per year. After seeking legal advice last night, they shot down the idea of withholding those fees. However, Council will provide their own suggestions to the province for changes to the corporation.
An arrest warrant has been issued for a Thunder Bay dog owner who failed to show up for his trial today. 57-year-old Frank Vantroba was charged with criminal negligence causing bodily harm following an incident in November of 2012 that left an 11-year-old boy with facial injuries. The trial was set to begin today, but Vantroba was nowhere to be found. Courtney Rutherford has the details.
It looks like your typical abandoned hockey ring, but what went on behind this chain fence is another story. Back in November of 2012, 11-year-old Dante Mechanic and his friends were on their way back from school when they jumped over the boards. Within minutes, his face was torn apart by one of 6 dogs who were unleashed at the time. The owner, 57-year-old Frank Ventroba, allegedly left the scene shortly after the incident took place. Mechanic was rushed to the hospital where he required 65 stitches to his face, among other reconstructive surgeries. Ventroba was charged with criminal negligence causing bodily harm following the incident. His 3-day trial was supposed to begin here at the Superior Court of Justice. When he didn't show up, the judge, lawyers, and the Crown waited for 45 minutes for him to arrive before an arrest warrant was issued. A new court date will be set upon his arrest. It isn't known whether or not Ventroba is currently in Thunder Bay or outside of the country. The last time he was present in court was for his preliminary hearing last year. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
The city's Animal Services Center has temporarily suspended its dog adoption program after the parvo virus claimed the lives of 6 canines at the shelter. The virus is highly contagious, but only among dogs. Humans, cats, and other animals are immune to the illness. The virus is very resistant to chemicals, and in some cases, it can live on certain surfaces for years. Animal Services Supervisor Jody Condrat says she's confident the shelter has the situation under control.
To prevent parvo, we're reminding pet owners to please vaccinate your pet. It's extremely important that you do that. And if your pet isn't vaccinated, please contact a vet today and try to make those arrangements. In addition, clean up after your pet. If you're walking your dog, obviously, you need to clean up after your pet. And control your pet. Don't allow your dog to run loose. Dogs that run loose are obviously at a higher risk of coming into contact with contaminated feces and getting parvo.
Anyone who suspects their dog to be infected with parvo should immediately admit the dog to a veterinarian.
The Ontario Provincial Police have identified the Thunder Bay driver killed in a 3-vehicle collision outside of Hearst on Sunday. 24-year-old Patrick Quessy-Briere was driving the pickup which crashed into an oncoming transport. The accident closed Highway 11 from Long Lac to Hearst for over 10 hours. The passenger in the pickup, a woman from London, Ontario, remains in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The cause of the crash is under investigation.
Crews with Thunder Bay Fire Rescue were called to an apartment on Simpson Street today after several people were reported to be unconscious and suffering from smoke inhalation. The call came in around 12:30 this afternoon. Fire crews found a smoldering mattress fire and quickly extinguished it. At least 2 people were brought to hospital by ambulance, but fire officials say it's unclear whether that was because they'd inhaled smoke from the mattress fire or because of some other cause.
Meanwhile, the family that had their John Street home damaged by fire on Friday escaped the house with nothing but the clothes on their back. Friends of the family have now started a Facebook group to gather donations to help them out. The Facebook group is called Helping Hands for Sandra. According to family friend Kim Katari, the basement is a write-off. Walls are torn down and a lot of the house has smoke damage. She says the young family is very grateful to receive support from the community.
We lost everything that's in the house, her and her 4 kids that are living with her. So we're just trying to come together as a community, friends and family, and help her to rebuild. We started a Facebook group called Helping Hands for Sandra, and we're collecting items for her. So far we've gotten a lot of donations coming in. Some are monetary, some are toys and clothes for the kids and Sandra. There's furniture.
Katari says the family doesn't know yet when they can move back home.
Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Bill Morrow is resurrecting a private member's bill that could help the local Bombardier plant secure a larger share of Ontario railcar contracts. Back in 2008, Morrow attempted to have 60% of the work from all mass transit details funded by the province to be carried out in Canada. His government, headed by former Premier Dalton McGuinty, settled instead on a 25% Made in Canada regulation. Morrow is calling for an increase to 60% and introduced the legislation at Queen's Park this afternoon.
The bill, Speaker, requires municipalities that receive financial assistance from the province of Ontario for the purchase of mass transit vehicles to consider only bids that meet certain conditions. Bids must conform to the rules and procedures applicable to the purchase process. In addition, at least 60% of the portion of the bid price relating to materials, overhead and labour and profit, up from 25% that I was proud to help achieve, Speaker, must be on account of materials, overhead, labour and profit originating in Canada.
There's no word on when the bill will head to second reading debate and a vote at Queen's Park.
The boil water advisory issued for Kenora on Saturday will continue for at least a week. There were more than 120 breaks in the city's pipes over the month of February, including 9 in the last week. A city release says despite the repair efforts, new breaks are appearing almost daily. Once Kenora officials complete the major repairs, the Northwestern Health Unit will begin the 3-day process of sending samples to Thunder Bay for testing.
Local high school students are forming their own version of the United Nations. A news conference was held at Sir Winston Churchill today to announce the upcoming gathering of the Model UN Club, with more than 100 students expected to attend. Sean Gong is the Secretary General of the Model UN. The Churchill student came up with the idea of having the conference here in the Northwest. He says he wanted to make the event worthwhile for all the students attending from across the region.
Originally, my plan was to try and raise funding to attend SOMA, which is the conference in Selborne, Ontario. However, I realized that funding would go towards making a meaningful experience for maybe 1 or 2 students, whereas with that same funding, we could create a meaningful experience for over 100 students here in Northern Ontario if we held our own conference.
It's incredibly important because I think as schools, we're really looking at active citizenship as a key component of what we can provide for students. And I think it fosters an interest that sometimes we underestimate that kids have.
The Model UN Conference will be held on April 4th at Confederation College.
Thunder Bay's Catholic schools were celebrating Shrove Tuesday today, and for students at St. Paul's School, that meant a pancake breakfast at the Current River Community Center. Shrove Tuesday is the day before Lent begins. It's often referred to as Pancake Day. Around 20 parents volunteered their time cooking pancakes and sausages for around 160 students from St. Paul. Parent Council President Samantha Duke Richards says pancakes are made with milk, butter, eggs, and sugar, which embodies everything they are not supposed to eat during the fasting season of Lent.
The celebration before we do Lent, and it's just a bringing of the community together and showing support of our community and getting all our kids and family members together. It's really exciting to have everybody together in the same space.
You get pancakes, sausages, how much pancakes you want, how much sausages. My class usually has contests, whoever can eat the most pancakes, and that's usually not me.
Planning this event takes about a month. Shrove Tuesday is always held the day preceding Ash Wednesday, the first day of